The Sony PlayStation 3. I love this console. Now, it was released in 2006. It's Sony's third generation gaming console. Technically their fourth console overall if you count the PlayStation Portable. And this console is one beast of a system. Now, it was released over 3 models in its time. This is the original launch model, the Model 1 from Japan, which it's a 60 gig model. They came in the 40 gig and the 20 gig too also. And over time, Sony released up to, I think, a 500 gig model of the Model 3 in certain regions. Now, certain things to notice about the Model 1. It has built-in Wi-Fi, it has 4 USB ports up front, and what was disabled or not even included in other models of the Model 1 was that this door opens up and you have a bunch of memory card slots for compact flash, your SD, and your memory stick Pro, which was, I think, Sony's one of their proprietary memory sticks. On the back, you have your Ethernet port, your HDMI out, and AV out, your power toggle, and your AC in. Now, when this was released, I believe Sony released this beast of a console for like $599 and $699 respectively when it first came out. And where the Xbox 360 was only retailing for about $300 at the time, Sony really took the back burner in the market, especially because Xbox had the first year, because they came out in 2005, under their belt, and they had the cheaper price tag. A couple things that I love about the PlayStation, though, is the games. I think the games are what really made the system and the exclusives, and which is why when the price started going down, Sony started shipping a lot more systems, a lot more people realized how awesome the PlayStation 3 was. Now, if Sony didn't do this, the PlayStation 3 could have been a flop, even though the system is an absolute powerhouse. It has, I think it's like it has what's called the cell processor, which I think is like 6 different processors working together. The graphics card was a monster for its time, and the games to this day still hold up and look incredibly well. Games like Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto 5, Heavy Rain is one of my favorites, which is it's like an adventure game made by Quantic Dream along with Beyond Two Souls. They were games that made the PlayStation 3 different than the rest of all the gaming consoles at the time. The PlayStation had a wide plethora of RPGs, whether it be the Tales of Xillia series. They had games like the Final Fantasy X and X-2 remasters. Just the PlayStation 3 had a set of games for everyone. If you liked Heavy Rain, there's also the Telltale games like The Walking Dead, The Wolf Among Us, Back to the Future. Games like L.A. Noire, games like Puppeteer, where no systems were really doing platformers this generation. Sony kept the platformer alive. Whether they released the Jak and Daxter collection, the Ratchet and Clank collection, and the Metal Gear Solid games. Metal Gear Solid 4 came out on the PlayStation 3 and it was a PlayStation exclusive. It was a phenomenal game. Now, a lot of people in America chose the Xbox 360 over the PlayStation. And where that's their opinion, I was never an Xbox guy. So my moment that I was able to get my hands on a PlayStation 3, that's where I was going. The PlayStation 3 had such a wide variety of games, as I mentioned, and the original Model 1 was backwards compatible with the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 1 through hardware-based emulation. Now, later on, the PlayStation 2 emulation became only available if you downloaded the games from the PlayStation Store. However, PlayStation 1 was compatible through all the models, which a lot of people don't know. If you guys want to look at the controller looks like your standard PlayStation controller of the time. It was pretty much a DualShock 2 with the added 6-axis, which was motion control built in, and it was wireless, and you charged it via USB Mini, it looks like. Now, other games that I loved on the PlayStation were the Uncharted games. You had The Last of Us. Like, Naughty Dog really came out and proved as to why they were still Sony's top developer. Uncharted was a phenomenal series. The God of War series. Granted, that had the first 2 games on the PlayStation 2, but God of War 3 and, to the lesser point, God of War Ascension were phenomenal games. And then there's the God of War Saga collection, which I personally have, which includes all the games up until that point remastered in HD. And they're just fun to play. They're beat-em-up games that take a place of basically Kratos, who's the main character, destroying the Greek mythology gods for making him kill his family in the long run. It's a long, convoluted story. But I definitely think the PlayStation 3 was a console that it took a while to prove its worth, even though off the bat it had all the potential in the world. And it was only until the price drop that the PlayStation 3 started overseeing or overcoming the sales gap of the Xbox 360 here in America. To my understanding, everywhere else in the world, the PlayStation destroyed the Xbox. And here in America, though, where the price of $600 still seems kind of steep to this day, honestly, because the PlayStation 4 launched at $400. The PlayStation 3 was a powerhouse that was ahead of its time, and to this day, this still weighs about like 10-15 pounds just to lift. Now, if you look at the console, it's a monster. It's big, it's a beast, and Sony would slim down, as I mentioned, with other remodels over time, but I still personally enjoyed the Model 1 as my favorite model of the PlayStation 3. Now, the hard drive was removable, which at the time was awesome because it allowed you to upgrade your hard drive, where for the Xbox 360, their first model, if you guys remember, was still a removable hard drive that you plugged to the top, which was cool. But then when they did the 360 remodel, the hard drive became built in, and it became really tough to get to. Where the PlayStation 3, the hard drive was always right in front of you, and they continued that with the PlayStation 4. Guys, I know I didn't really mention a lot of the awesome games on the PlayStation 3, but the thing is, there's just too many to mention. Sony had so many good exclusives for this system. Little Big Planet also, I know I didn't mention that one. You had Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 came out as PlayStation's exclusives as HD remasters of the original Kingdom Hearts. That was the one thing that Sony did great with the PlayStation 3, and even continuing to the PlayStation 4, there's a lot of HD or Super HD remasters for the system. And it continues to bring classic games to the future with trophy support, with little upgraded graphics, and it makes things fun, and it makes you realize that it's not the system that makes the games, it's the games that make the system. So by Sony adapting that model, it allows just games that people love to play to be continued to be played. The PlayStation Store, as I mentioned, had a lot of indie games, and Sony's always been really good with letting indie developers get on their PlayStation Store, where other consoles and manufacturers were very iffy about how they would allow third-party developers to just release games. I honestly can say that the PlayStation 3 is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite game console to hook up today and just play PS3 games. Just because there's so many underrated gems, and then there's just so many gems in general that people love from the PS3. And there's really no complaints about the PlayStation 3 nowadays. The price is fine. You can still get one. It's a reliable console. As I mentioned, this model came out, launch model. It's a 2006 model, and it still works for me relatively well. There's a few times where I have to like redo my my file system, or it's my disc that screws up, but up top it even shows it supported the Blu-ray, the DVD, the Super Audio CD, compact disc, Dolby True HD, Dolby Digital, DTS, surround, Bluetooth, and HDMI. Now, at the time of its release, the PlayStation 3 was the cheapest way to get a Blu-ray player. And you may think that sounds absurd for $600 when they can be get for like $50 to $100 now. But when the Blu-ray player first came out, it was like a $1,000 thing in 2006, and it was crazy. So the PlayStation 3, Sony had always given you that option to just buy the game console, and not only will you have the Blu-ray player, you have a whole slew of other options. Guys, that's my overview of why I love the PlayStation 3. If you guys like the PlayStation 3, leave your comments below. If you had some gripes with the PlayStation 3, leave those below also. What were your favorite games for the console? How do you think it's going to be remembered in 10, 15 years, 5 years from now? And as always, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day.